Hey, Richard Bryce here, Tennis Hacker. In this video, I want to help you to improve your anticipation. So I'm going to be going through the 3 different steps and things that you can do to predict and read where your opponent's going to hit their shots. And I'm also going to give you a bonus 4th thing, which isn't anticipation, but is actually much more important than anticipation. So hopefully you find the video helpful. If you do, give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel before, much appreciated if you could do that as well. So anticipation is all about trying to read and predict your opponent's next shot so that you can get a head start, so that you can get to the ball more quickly and get set up in the best position possible. Because high-level tennis is all about being set up in the right position in time. If you're not prepared in time, you're not set up in the right position in time, the chances of you hitting a good shot go down dramatically, and this is where it goes wrong for so many people in matches. So anticipation is important, and when you first play against someone new, there are basically 3 things that you can do, and you start with number 1, then you can start to think about number 2 the more you've seen them play, and then you can start to think about number 3. So in order, the first thing that you can think about is going to be based off percentages and statistics and court geometry. And what I mean by that is, in every situation you're going to hit a shot, and based on the shot that you hit, there is a certain likelihood that your opponent will hit a specific shot. So if I hit the ball deep cross court to my opponent's forehand, the highest likelihood is they're going to hit that back cross court. If I hit deep to their forehand, they shouldn't be going down the line of that. It's a low percentage shot that's not going to be very advantageous for them. So I can predict that, and I can just recover into position. So I've predicted their next shot. I've anticipated it. Now, unfortunately, at lower levels of the game, players go for silly, unrealistic shots, so they might try and go down the line from that, which makes it much harder to anticipate at lower levels. It's actually way easier playing tennis at higher levels because you know where your opponent's going to go a lot of the time, and they also know where they're going to go because they're more accurate with their shots. But forget that, we'll just stick with the percentages. So that's what should happen. Whereas if I go down the line, so I hit a deep ball down the line, now there's a certain likelihood that my opponent is going to hit different shots. They shouldn't come back down the line from that shot. That would be a terrible idea. I've got the option of doing 2 things. I can either approach to the net after I've gone back, but I would never do that because I'll get a nosebleed if I get too close to the net. Instead, what I'll do is I will move over to this side of the court, anticipating that they're going to come back cross court, and hopefully I'm going to find a way to get that on my forehand, or I would have done when I was still playing right-handed. But that's how you think about percentages. This is the first thing that you've got to go on when you're playing against someone new. You hit a certain shot, and depending on where you hit your shot, there's a certain likelihood that your opponent is going to hit a specific type of shot in response to that. Like I said, unfortunately, it goes off a little bit at the lower levels, but the higher the level that you play at, the more predictable these patterns become. The next layer of anticipation is going to be about reading opponents' tendencies. So obviously when you've never played someone before, you can't do this, but as you start to play your opponent, your job is to kind of monitor and log what they're doing, because in different situations players are going to do certain things. Hopefully they're going to be following the percentages that I've just described, and that makes things way easier, but not all players do that. You'll get some players that whenever they get a ball on their forehand, they're just going to try and attack down the line and finish the point. And although that makes it a little bit harder to predict initially, if they do that over and over again, they're going to keep on doing that. So now you can start to predict, if I hit that shot, they're going to go down the line. And I play a guy that does this. He just does not, now I'm playing left-handed, I go deep into his backhand, he just does not want to get into a rally going backhand to backhand, so he always tries to go down the line way too early. So it's not the highest percentage thing that he should do, but he does it every time. So because he does it, I know he's going to do it, so I can start to anticipate, I can predict that, and I can bias myself and get set up down the line more quickly. So when you're playing against an opponent, look out for their tendencies. If you hit it deep cross court on their forehand, what do they do? If you hit it short cross court on the forehand, what do they do? Deep cross court on the backhand, what do they do? Short cross court on the backhand, what do they do? If you approach the net on their forehand, do they tend to go cross court? Do they tend to go down the line? Do they tend to put up a lob? Same thing on the backhand side. And you can also do this same thing with serving patterns. Again, in different situations, where do they serve to? And this is kind of the second layer of anticipation. So first we've got percentages, second we've got tendencies. The third layer of anticipation is going to be picking up on visual cues or tells. And some of this is a little bit more basic, but some of it is a little bit more advanced, so I've placed it third. By watching what your opponent does with their swing, you can start to kind of work out what shot they're going to hit. So the easiest example is going to be, if you can see they're doing this, you know it's going to be topspin, whereas if you're watching their swing path and they're going high to low, then you know that they're going to be hitting slice, whether that's on the forehand or whether it's on the backhand. On the backhand side, more specifically, if you're playing an opponent that's got a two-handed backhand and you see them take it back with one hand, you know it's going to be slice. But even if they're using a one-handed backhand, you can normally tell the difference between this and this, or you can with a little bit of training if you know what to look for. So you can start to anticipate the type of spin that they're going to hit based on the shape of their swing. Now, we've got to factor in the percentages that we talked about earlier. Are they more likely to go cross court or down the line? But this is how you start to layer things together. A lot of top players these days are using disguised drop shots, but what you'll notice is that most of the pros do actually start to move before they actually hit the drop shot. Because even when it's really well disguised, you can see this as well, because you'll see them shape up for a forehand and then they'll change the grip at the last second and then do a drop shot, or on the backhand they'll change their grip or change their grip at the last second. But at the lower levels of the game, so not Alcaraz and Djokovic, the disguise tends to be a lot worse. So the changing of the grip tends to happen a lot sooner. So you can start to pick up on whether someone is going to hit a drop shot or not. And then there is slightly more advanced kind of visual cues that you can pick up on. Some players will only be able to hit in a certain direction based on the stance that they're using. So some players, they'll set up in a neutral stance and they won't be able to go cross court from the neutral stance. So you know if they set up in a neutral stance, they're going down the line. So once you've seen them do that a few times, or once you've recognized that, then you can start to use that to predict and anticipate their shot. So they're the kind of the three layers of anticipation. We've got percentages first, we've got tendencies second, and then we've got these visual cues, which are kind of a combination, but they're the three different layers. Now let's talk about the fourth thing that I mentioned earlier that's actually even more important than anticipation. Because when you ask people what they want to improve, they say anticipation, but the reason they say that is because they want to get to the ball sooner and they want to get set up in better positions. And they think that it's lack of anticipation that's causing the problem. But it isn't for most people. The big problem for most people is they can't read the flight of the ball quickly enough or accurately enough. Because even if you can predict where the ball's going, you still have to read the flight of the ball to know where it's going and then actually set up in the right position. And the reality is most adult tennis players' visual systems don't function well enough to allow them to read the flight of the ball quickly enough. This is why so many players, they're waiting until the ball is bouncing on their side of the court before they even start to prepare. But the good news is you can actually change that. You can improve the visual skills needed in tennis using brain-based training. And I would like to teach you how to do it. And I would like to teach you how to do it for free. Pretty soon I'm holding a live workshop. This is a 5-day event where you get to join me for an hour each day. And I'm going to teach you how to use brain-based training to improve visual skills and also to improve coordination, because tennis is all about hand-to-eye coordination. So if you'd like to learn how to do that, I'll place a link down in the description. Click on that link, it'll take you over to a page that's going to tell you more about it and allow you to register. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Yes, definitely work on improving your anticipation skills using these three different methods that I've just explained. That's an important thing to train on an ongoing basis, but you've got to understand that tennis is all based on being able to quickly read the flight of the ball, and if you can't do that part, you've got to solve that part as well. Okay, any questions or comments about what I've talked about, leave them down below and I'll catch you next time.